Greetings, YouTubers of the world. I am Arcanum Fantasy, and today for Arcanum's review, I bring you a very nice and unorthodox one-shot fanfic called Listen. This fanfic is, I guess you could consider the very loosest definition of a Rarity fic, but not so much because it ships Rarity with Fluttershy, but because it doesn't necessarily start out romantic. The fanfic has a very unusual style, written entirely from Rarity's perspective. However, I will admit there is a slight problem with the tensing. The fanfic is mostly written in present tense, which, to be honest, I'll get into closer to the end of the fic when I discuss true errors and such. Alright. The premise is that Rarity is pretty much going completely insane between her orders and working on dealing with Opalescence's usual bitchiness. I'm sure any cat owner can relate. Hey, don't give me that look. I'm a cat C, not a cat. There's a difference. Anyway, eventually she gets so fed up she decides to lock Opalescence into her cage and then just go hang out with Fluttershy for a little while to chill her nerves. Well, when she gets there, she finds Fluttershy acting like a statue, or at least is what it looks like from her perspective. Afterwards, Rarity tries to get Fluttershy's attention, in which she shushes her and eventually encourages her to do the exact same thing that she's doing, which, by the way, is meditating. And when she does this, Rarity discovers, well, that there's a lot going on around her that she never really noticed. Essentially, she almost goes into something like a Zen state trance, and just kind of, well, I suppose it's very hard to describe. Hell, I'm having a hard time describing it. To get a better idea, I guess you could say it's like when you're listening to a Sounds of Nature CD, and you just close your eyes. Everything you hear becomes 1,000 times more solid, I suppose. The writer does a great job, in other words, displaying what the effects meditation has on the personality of a person, as well as their view of their surroundings. A very, very difficult task. At least difficult to write correctly. Eventually, Rarity discovers that Fluttershy uses this trick to help interpret what animals are really feeling and thinking. Her explanation being that since animals can't talk, we have to listen for all kinds of different cues. For example, the way this squirrel approaches her, Rarity could tell that it was gnashing its teeth a little bit, and it seemed a little fidgety. A set of traits that Fluttershy took into note and said reflected that this squirrel was hungry, but also hungry for fruit specifically. In which case, Rarity later decides to use this same ability, now with a much more focused sense of mind, to determine what is wrong with Opalescence. In fact, she discovers that Opal is not exactly agreeing with the food that she bought her. Well, her stomach isn't anyway. And the fanfic pretty much concludes there. At least until it gets to its sequels, which I may do later on in the future. Now, any issues I'd have with this fic. The first one is one I mentioned earlier, which was the tense issue. And this is exactly what you call it. As the name kind of implies, it's a error that involves the writing style having the words take place in the past, present, or future when they don't need to. For example, when doing present tense writing, it fits much more cleanly with the storyline when it's done either during dialogue or in thoughts. Using past tense is generally what you use in descriptions and the general meat of a story. That doesn't have to do with the character's inner monologue. When written from a character perspective, these tense issues can be extremely dangerous if messed up, because they essentially cause your entire story to collapse from the inside out. This story suffers from it badly. There are a tiny handful of moments where the writer actually uses the proper tensing in the right parts of the story, but these get entirely overshadowed by all the times it's improperly used. In regards to other errors such as spelling, there's none. As far as off error, none. As far as pacing, it's a very well-paced story, considering it's more or less it's a rather adorable little slice of life picture. That's about it. So the pacing is slow, but the right kind of slow. Alright, character descriptions, flawlessly. And, of course, the ever-prominent name overload error. It does suffer from that. An error that uses... the name overload error is essentially, for those who don't know, or aren't familiar with my channel, is the error in which a character's name is used repeatedly when a description of the character would be more appropriate. Examples being referring to Rainbow Dash as, instead of Rainbow Dash, refer to her as the Cyan Pegasus, or the Speedster, or the Stunt Flyer, or the Rainbow-maned Pony. Or as some would like to call her, the egocentric rainbow-haired mare. Granted, these can be wordy, but they do maintain the flow of the story, and keeps it from sounding clunky. This one, it does fall victim to it, but not as badly as some of the other effects I've seen in the past. All in all, I give Listen a 7 out of 10. Well, if the writer can fix a tense issue, this can easily be promoted straight to 9, or straight to 9 or 10. Especially if they can work on the name overload issue in addition. Well, that's all we got for now, my friends. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you're feeling particularly generous, stop by my Patreon account, link of which is in the description below. After all, every little bit helps. Also, if you want to meet me on my Facebook account, just go onto Facebook and look me up. I'm always looking forward to any kind of advice or even recommendations for fan fictions that you might have that you want me to review. And, well, with all that said, have fun and sleep well, my friends.